Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Becky Hogue, and I welcome you to Books Between Bites, and I'm going to turn it over to George to do the introductions, but I always do my little bit about if you would like to be on our email list and once a month get a new email from me about the upcoming program. I'll set this over here and just sign up afterwards and we'll get you monthly emails. So we thank you for coming out on this cold winter day, and we're very happy to have this program. We meet in June to plan everything and are always so happy when everything falls together and we get yeses and that they will come and welcome you today, and hope you'll enjoy this topic. If you don't know about it, we need to learn.
Thank you. Well, I'm George Sheets, and Library Director, and as most of you know, I know many of you. And welcome to the Batavia Public Library, again for Books Between Bites on behalf of the library. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Joanne Smith today, because she is the President of the Board of Library Trustees, longtime member and past President of the Friends of the Batavia Public Library, and is even teaching a class here at the library for young people on how to code, and which you may be alluding to, so I don't want to say any more about that. But we're just so happy to have her here today, and so please give a warm Batavia welcome to Joanne Smith.
Well, thank you, George and Becky. And let me just start off today by telling you how delighted I am to be here today. And I'm delighted for two reasons. The first reason is I really love to talk about my book. And the second reason is I really love the Batavia Public Library. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be speaking about my book. So up there on the screen is an image of the cover of my book, and here is the actual cover of my book. Can anybody see any difference between the actual cover and the image?
It says it's all Batavia on the screen.
Very good, Rosemary. There's a little word bubble there with Joanne Smith saying it's all Batavia. So what do I mean by that? Well, by that I mean I had this idea for this book, and I realized that there are two truths that I became aware of as I was working on it. And that was turning an idea into a book is difficult. And no one is successful without getting help from others. I had an idea, but would not have been able to write the book based on my idea without the help of others. And so the people I'm going to talk about here that helped are all Batavians. So this book really was produced right here in Batavia. So the first person I would like to mention is Elise Holm. Elise Holm, when I first met her, was a college student majoring in art. And so since I published this book myself, I didn't have a large budget to pay for an illustrator. So I have a grown son who is a professor at Waubonsee Community College, so I asked him if he would go to the art department, speak with the professors there, and see if any of them would be willing to sponsor one of their students to do an internship with me, where they would do the illustrations, and I would get the illustrations for my book, but they would get college credit for their work. And so that all worked out. And Professor of Art sent me 3 people from Waubonsee. I interviewed them all, and there was no question in my mind that Elise was the one I was going to work with. And Elise went to Batavia High School. Her dad is one of the football coaches, I believe, out there. So it just worked out beautifully. So I want to make sure that I thank Elise and give her all the proper credit for the work that she did with me. The second person I want to talk about is in the audience today. I think she's sitting right over there. And her name is Maryanne Fasano. I met Maryanne as we were working on the library referendum last year. And I was so impressed with her communication skills and her writing skills that when I was thinking about this book, I asked her if she would be the editor. And so she edited my book beautifully and made it a better version of itself. So thanks to Maryanne. And the third person I want to talk about is the gentleman who designed the front cover of my book, the back cover of my book, and at the last minute when I was just getting ready to publish this thing, I get this message from the Amazon self-publishing site that says, "You need a spine." So I emailed this person very quickly. I said, "Oh, I need a spine, I need it quick." You know, within 15 minutes, he had done it and sent me the work for the spine. This person's name is Dave Peterson. He owns Peterson Designs, which is a Batavia-based company, and I'm just so thankful that I was able to work with him, and he certainly did give me, I think, a cover that is visually appealing. So those are the three Batavians I want to talk about, but I have a few other people to thank before I actually talk about my book. And so I want to have notes here so I don't forget anybody. First is my husband, Ray. He's sitting back there in the audience. Ray's the kind of guy who, if I say, "I've got an idea," he'll say, "Go for it." And so he's always behind me in all of these little adventures that I have taken through my life. And I thank him because he had the same work telephone number for 37 years. So that tells you how stable he is, right? And his career has been very stable. But his stability gave me the ability to do all of the fun and exciting things that I've been able to do with my career. So thanks to Ray. I want to thank my son, Tim, the professor of computer science. When I first told him about this idea, I'll be talking about it a little bit more in a little bit. I'll tell you then what he said to me. But it was what he said to me that gave me the encouragement to move forward. I want to thank my 97-year-old mother. She has no idea what I'm talking about when I tell her about all these things that I'm doing, but I'm convinced everyone needs a cheerleader like her. She's awesome. I want to thank my daughter-in-law, Carla, who really is responsible for the birth of the idea. And finally, my grandson, William, who gave me age-appropriate feedback. As I was writing this, I'd give it to him, and I'd say, "What do you think?" And he'd say, "Oh, this is okay, Grandma, but this over here, this is dumb." So I got a lot of good feedback from my grandson. All the people at the library also who helped me out. George is always supportive. Stacy helped me with ISBN numbers. Carrie helped me get the cataloging done. And Joanne Zillman was the one who helps me with scheduling this little class that I teach. So the folks at the library were also very supportive. I think that's everybody, yep. Okay, so just a little background about me. I have been involved in what is currently being called computational thinking and computer programming for, I hate to say this, but almost 40 years of my life has been spent in this field. I was the owner of a computer training company. I did training for people like Motorola and Lucent and Nestle Foods and Commonwealth Edison and even Fermilab right here in Batavia. I was a professor of computer science for many, many years at the University of St. Francis and at Harper College up in Palatine. When I retired from teaching, I spent about 3 or 4 months around the house kind of wondering what I was going to do with myself. And so I got really bored, and I decided that I would start up a consulting company. And so I did a lot of consulting in the realm of higher ed, where I did things like create a degree verification system. I created a dynamic online college catalog. So I did that for many years. The degree evaluation systems, actually Harper called me and asked me if I would be willing to work on this. And I said, sure, how long do you think it'll take? They said about 6 months. Oh, that's about perfect. And 7 years later, I was still doing it. So that was really a lot of fun. My career began in the field of computer science at AT&T Bell Labs in Naperville, which became Lucent, which became Alcatel-Lucent, which became Alcatel, which became Nokia, I think is where it's at today. But that's where I started, at AT&T Bell Labs. I'm retired now, but it's hard to keep me out of the classroom. So as George told you earlier, I am teaching a little class here at the library to 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, where I teach them JavaScript, which is the language taught in my book. And the reception's been pretty well received, both by the students and by their parents. And I guess the last thing, my education, I have a Master of Science degree in computer science from the Illinois Institute of Technology, and I have a Bachelor of Science degree in education from the University of Dayton. So that's me, and now it's time to talk about my book. So, in the beginning, there's a picture of an anatomy coloring book. This is how it all started. I don't even know exactly how I found out about this book, but my daughter-in-law is a professor of exercise physiology at Concordia University, and she teaches anatomy and physiology. So I thought, what a great Christmas gift for her. I'll get her a coloring book where you can color things about anatomy. So I looked this book up, and I was just fascinated by, first of all, the ratings that it gets, 4.5 stars, and it's in its 4th edition. So this book's been around a while. So I started reading about it. It came down here, and you can see where it says, oh, I didn't get to, hold on. Sure, exactly. Well, that's okay. I'll just tell you what it says. Where I was going was to the Amazon website where this book is sold.
They're just here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want us to invite them up?
Okay.
There is the Amazon page.
We got it. Okay. We came. So anyway, I saw this. I saw that it had really great reviews, 4.5 stars. And what really impressed me was down here, where it says it was the #1 book in the area of medical education and training. It was the #1 book in biology and the #1 book in education. So I'm like, well, this book is really doing well. And so then I started reading some of the comments down here that people who had purchased the book were leaving behind. And I've actually included some of those in my presentation. Okay, so the first comment was, this book was amazing for helping me actually learn the structures of anatomy and physiology. It helps it stick in your brain, and it makes learning fun. I even found myself during the lab exam remembering the colors I used for that particular structure. And then another comment was, this really helped me master anatomy as a nursing student. So that got me thinking. And I thought, well, how could I use color and coloring, which is something I'd never thought about before, in my field of computer science? So the next steps, I did some research. And I eventually landed on the method that I use in my book, Color My Code. That is, I have the users color the elements of a programming statement a different color for each element. And I mentioned this to my son, who is a professor of computer science also, and his response was, Mom, it's a lot like diagramming a sentence, and kids have been doing that forever. And that's all I needed. It was like, yeah, that really cemented it for me. Because I think about diagramming a sentence, you kind of deconstruct the sentence, right? You come up with a subject and a predicate and an object, and it helps you understand that sentence structure better. And I thought, well, if my students could deconstruct their programming statements, it will help them think more about them and help them understand how to put them together correctly a little bit better. So the next thing I did is I started introducing this concept in that little JavaScript class that I teach here at the library. And the kids liked it, and their parents liked it too. Parents would come and pick them up, and they'd say to me, can I do that too? And I'd say, well, sure. But I mean, it's really written, the book is really written for children, but I've had several adults say they've used it and learned from it. So what does it do? Well, it teaches what I refer to as text-based real-world coding concepts. I guess I'm kind of hardcore when it comes to programming. And I looked all over the web, all over the internet, and there's tons of stuff out there to help you learn how to program. But most of them use a language called Blocky. And all it is a bunch of blocks that you drag around on the screen and put in a certain order in order to, create a program. And that's fine. I'm not trying to diss that. It's great. It's good for teaching logic, putting things in the right order. But I thought it was very game-like, which I know kids love. But I also thought it might give people the wrong impression about what programming really is. It's really not dragging blocks around on a screen. It's really more entering code. So I decided to write a book that would be fun, use color and coloring, but also get them involved in what programmers really do. So I'm going to kind of show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to come over here and bring up the Chrome browser. The Chrome browser was written to accept JavaScript programming very, very well. The beauty of my book is that that's all you need is the Chrome browser. You don't need to go out and buy anything more. You can just get all the work done using the Chrome browser. So what you have to do, though, is bring up something that's called the JavaScript console. So in order to do that, it just really opens a window here for you where you can actually enter code. Now, this is great for beginners. This is not how a real-world JavaScript programmer would write their code. But I'm going to get rid of that text there in yellow, and I'm actually going to key in the program that's on the cover of the book. It's short, so it won't take me too long. So I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it length. I'm going to give it a value. Value is going to be 10. And I'm going to end that statement with a semicolon, because all JavaScript statements end with semicolons. I'm going to create another variable called width. I'm going to give that a value of 5, end it with a semicolon. I'm going to create another variable called area, and I'm going to end that statement. I'm not going to give it an initial value, because my program is actually going to calculate the area of what is this rectangle that I'm setting up. So the next statement actually does the calculation. I'm going to set area equal to length, which now has a value of 10, right? Yeah. Times width, which has a value of 5, and that statement. And now I want to be able to, that statement, I want to be able to display the results of this program. So I'm going to use a method called console.log. All it does is allow me to print to the screen. So I'll be able to see if my program works correctly or not. Oh, better get that spelled right. I'm just going to start over. This is good because it demonstrates that if you don't spell things correctly or get the syntax exactly right, JavaScript's not going to be very happy with you. So I'm going to use console.log.
You still have length misspelled.
Yeah, too many T's.
I have what misspelled?
2 T's in length.
Okay.
And you don't have bar right with width.
With width, your VAR is.
Well, thank you. I do have a little bit of a problem with my eyesight, I'll tell you that right now. So this little type here is causing me some difficulty, but I'll start over again. So length is okay here, right? Width is okay?
No, you need V. You
VAR.
need a V.
Oh.
You need a V in front of it.
Okay, thank you.
There you
There you
go.
go.
Area is okay?
Perfect.
Length times
Oh.
width is okay?
No. Length has 2 T's.
2 T's, okay. Thank you. So now the next thing I'm going to do is that console.log statement that I've been trying to get in here.
I can't read that, can you?
It's very small print.
I can't read it.
I'll go over it again before I execute it, okay? And I want to print the word area, followed by a semicolon, followed by a space. And then I want to add on to that the value stored in area,
50.
which right now is the value of length times width, so it should be 50, right? Everybody following that? So I'll execute that. And I don't know if you can see it well enough, but it does say at the very bottom there, area, colon, space, 50. So that's just a really simple little program that I kind of start the kids out with, and then I show them this. I say, you know what? That's wonderful. But now that I have this program written, I could calculate the area of any rectangle. So I could change that value 10 to 8, let's say, and I could change that value 5 for the width to, let's say, 7. Everything else stays the same. execute that program again, and now the area is 56. So I could kind of keep changing this, calculate the value of any rectangle simply by making some little changes like that. So this is real world programming. This is what people do. They literally key in their code. And so that's where I start the kids up. It emphasizes what's referred to these days. This is a really popular topic these days called computational thinking. So a definition of computational thinking is it's a problem-solving process that includes a number of characteristics and dispositions. It's essential to the development of computer applications. Applications, by the way, just another word for program. But, and here's the important part, this is why computational thinking is really, really popular right now. It can be used to support problem solving across all disciplines, including the humanities, math, and science. So what you come away with here is that, and the reason why people are wanting people to learn computational thinking isn't so everybody in the world can be a programmer, because we don't need that. But we do want everyone to think like a programmer, to be able to do the problem solving that's involved. So the transfer of that knowledge to any field is valuable and worthwhile. It uses coloring of individual elements of a programming statement. Anybody here ever do any programming? You have, okay. Have you used a text editor that's part of what we call an integrated development environment? Okay, so for years we've been using these editors that use color coding for us. So when we type in a keyword, it's a certain color. When you type in a variable, it's another color. When you type in a string, it's another color. Type in a comment, it's another color. So color coding has been around for a while to help us, get our syntax right in our program. But never before, and I did do a search, a patent search. This technique's not ever been used before to help people learn to program. What can you expect to learn? Well, you can learn about keywords, you can learn about variables, data types, operators, sequential statements. These are the simplest ones. These are the ones that just execute one after the other, after the other, after the other, and the computer just keeps going. You also learn about interactive input. This is really important because you may want to write a program that tell somebody what day of the week their birthday will be on in the year 2050. Okay, in order to do that, you got to know when their birthday is, right? So when you run the program, you want the ability to get the input from the user as your program is running. That's called interactive input. So you learn how to do that. You learn how to write decision statements. It's powerful. Now you're starting to get into some of the power of programming. This means that as you're writing your program, you're going to test some value in your program and then decide whether to do this or do something else. So you'll write it so that you'll do the test, and then you'll say, okay, execute these statements if this is true. Otherwise, execute these statements if it's false. So you can write programs that literally make decisions, and then the real power is loops. I think it's the real power because human beings get bored really easy. You can write a program to execute a loop twice. You can write one to execute a loop 10 times, 100 times, 100,000 times. Doesn't matter. The computer will keep working and keep working and keep working and never get bored. Not only that, they won't make as many mistakes as long as your program is correct, and they'll get it done a lot faster than you and I would. So loops are a real powerful part of programming. Color My Code encourages attention to detail. And this was taken from an article on the benefits of coloring and drawing. I'm not going to read the whole article to you, I'll just read little parts of it. Coloring and drawing both help kids improve fine motor skills. But here's the important part. They also train the brain to focus. And so coloring, the act of picking up a colored pencil or a crayon or whatever and coloring, they've actually done studies of the brain and it helps you to focus. So I thought, well, as an educator, that was important to me, that I was going to use something that encouraged focus. It also introduces HTML, just enough so that you can put your JavaScript program on the web. You can actually run it in a browser. HTML stands for this awful sounding thing called Hypertext Markup Language. But it's really pretty simple. It's not difficult to learn, and in the book, you don't have to learn that much of it in order to get your program on the web. Let me give you just a picture of what HTML looks like. Came back over here to Chrome. This is a website. This is the Chrome website. Right now we're looking at the console, but I switch over here to Elements. What you see show up is HTML. So if somebody had to write this HTML in order to get this website to be displayed. So that's when I say that you learn just enough so that you can get your program on the web. It offers hands-on practice using sample programs, but also the opportunity to write programs from scratch. It also includes whimsical art that you can color in addition to coloring your code. So now we're going to go to my website. My son and I developed a website to go along with this book. And so here's an example of a program for practice. In other words, this program's already written. All you have to do is key it in, run it, and make sure it runs correctly. Okay, but it's important to do the practice because this program's simple. This is early on in the book. It's literally 2 console.log statements. The first one should print on the screen, I'm hungry. And the second one should print on the screen, I think I'll have a burger. So you key that in, you hit the enter key, you run the program, and you should see on your screen, I'm hungry, I think I'll have a burger. Okay? In the book, there are also these exercises called Do It From Scratch. So no help here. You got to write it yourself. So here it says, write a JavaScript program that displays 2 lines of text on the JavaScript console. And the 2 lines are, I'm learning JavaScript is fun, and soon I'll be learning a lot more. Well, the interesting thing here is that this program is really the same as this one. This one prints 2 lines of text on the screen. This one's asking you to print 2 lines of text on the screen. All you have to do is transfer that learning, and instead of here doing I'm hungry, you would key in learning JavaScript is fun. And instead of I think I'll have a burger, in the second console.log statement, you would put, soon, I'll be learning a lot more. So the idea is the practice programs kind of set you up so that you can transfer that learning and do it on your own. So what makes it special? Well, obviously it uses coloring, and it uses visual association to teach beginners from 3rd grade to adult. It also offers the opportunity to color in the book, to color online at my website, or to use QR codes that are in the book that let you actually color on your cell phone or on a tablet. So I'm going to take you there now. So what does coloring in the book look like? I created a bunch of little videos to go along with this book so that if you need a little bit of extra help, you can go here and get it. So this is how to color in the book. Hi, this is Joanne. I'm going to be showing you today how to color your code in the actual physical book. So basically what you want to do is start by looking at the instructions next to the symbol that we've been using to show that this is something you want to color. In this case, it says color all the special symbols, the parentheses, the double quotes, the semicolon, in the JavaScript statements below, so that would be these, using the color orange. And then color the methods, and in this case we're telling you that console.log is a method. You color those using the pink color, and you color the strings, which you have learned about, using the gray color. So let's get started. Before I actually color, I'm going to make a suggestion here. And that is, the suggestion is to color one line of code at a time. So color this line first, followed by this line. And then another suggestion is to color from left to right. Now there are a couple exceptions to that rule, and I'll be pointing that out as we go along. So let's get started. And this first line of code, the first thing I run into is console.log. It tells me that I should use pink to color that. So I'm going to get my pink pencil right here, and I'm going to color console.log using pink. The next thing I run into is an open paren. It tells me that parentheses are special symbols, excuse me, and that I should use orange to color those. So I'm going to get my orange pencil, come down here to the code, and color that open paren using orange. Now here's an exception to the rule, and that is that parens will always come in pairs. So when you color the open paren, I'm going to ask you to search for the closing paren, and go ahead and color that right after you color that open paren. The next thing we run into is a double quote. And again, double quotes are special symbols. So I have my orange pencil. I'm going to color that open quote using orange. And again, just like parens, quotes come in pairs. So I'm going to ask you to search for that closing quote, just right here, and color that orange. The next thing I run into are the words I'm hungry. Those are between the quotes. So from what you've learned, you'll know that that's a string. I'm supposed to color strings using the gray color. So I'm going to get my gray, come back to my code, and color I'm hungry using the gray color. The last thing on this line is the semicolon. Semicolons are special symbols, so I should color those using orange. So go back and get my orange. Oh, that one's pink. Get my orange pencil and color the semicolon using orange. Coming down here to the second line of code, console.log is a method. I'm going to use pink for that. My open paren is a special symbol, so I'll use orange. Search for the closing paren, color that orange. My double quote is a special symbol, so I'll color that using orange. Find the closing double quote, color that orange. Next thing I run into are the words. I think I'll
Stop that.
The reason why that's important, I don't know if any of you, this gentleman said he's done some programming. Errors are really common when you're keying in your code, and it's really simple to forget a closing paren, let's say, or it's simple to forget the semicolon at the end of the statement. So my thinking was, if you color a semicolon orange enough times, that connection will be made, and you're less likely to make that error as a programmer, okay? The other thing that my book provides is the ability to color online. And quite honestly, the kids, I think, prefer the coloring online to the coloring in. Hi, this is Joanne, and today I'm going to show you how to color your code online. So the first thing I want to ask you to do is to make sure you read the directions up at the top. There could be different directions depending on the exercise you're working on. So for this one, it tells me to color special symbols, which are parentheses, double quotes, and semicolons, in the statements below, so that would be these down here, using the orange color. And then it tells me to color methods, and it tells me that console.log is a method, and I should use pink, and I should color strings, which you've learned about, using gray. Then down here, it tells me to select from the colors below. For this exercise, I have 3 choices: orange for special symbols, gray for strings, and pink for methods. Little box here will fill in with the color depending on which color I choose. A couple of suggestions, and that is I'm going to ask you to color 1 line of code at a time. So first this one, followed by this one. And then also going to ask you to color from left to right. There are a couple exceptions to that rule that I'll be pointing out as we go along. So let's go ahead and get started with this first line of code. First thing I run into is console.log. It told me that console.log was a method and that I should use pink. So I'm going to click on method, turns this little box pink, come over to my code, click on console.log. When I do, you hear that little success sound that tells me that I did a great job and that I did it correctly. Let's say that I had pink selected and I clicked on the words, I'm hungry. In that case, I hear kind of a dreadful sound, and it tells me that I'm incorrect and that I should try again. Next thing I run into on this line of code is an open paren. Tells me that's a special symbol. I should use orange. So I click on special symbol, the little box turns orange, come over here and click on the open paren. Now here's an exception to the rule. Parens come in pairs. So as soon as you color that open paren, I'm going to ask you to search for the closing paren and then go ahead and color it. The next thing I run into is a double quote. Tells me that double quotes are also special symbols. I already have orange selected, so I'm just going to click on the open quote. Like parens, quotes come in pairs, so I'm going to ask you to search for the closing quote and go ahead and color it. Next thing I run into are the words I'm hungry. Those are within the double quotes, and as you've learned, that means that's a string. So I'm going to come over here, click on string, turns that box to gray, come over here, click on I'm hungry, and I hear that success sound. The last thing on this line of code is a semicolon. Semicolon is a special symbol, so I'll choose orange and then click on the semicolon. First line of code is complete, so I move on to the next. Console.log is a method. Open paren is a special symbol. Search for the closing paren. Next thing I encounter is the double quote, which is also a special symbol, so I'll color that orange. Search for the closing quote, color that orange as well. Within the quotes, I have a string, so I'll choose string. Means I'm using gray. Click on the string. And then the last thing I encounter is a semicolon, which is a special symbol. As you can hear, when I finish the whole exercise and I've done it correctly, I get a round of applause, and it tells me that I have colored all of the code and that I have done a great job. So
you can see, I think you can see why the kids kind of do like the coloring online. They kind of get a kick out of it. Color My Code includes multisensory activities for enhanced learning,
and it appeals to visual learners. Is coding important? Well, a Gallup study found that 9 in 10 parents want their children to learn coding, but unfortunately, less than 50% of high schools even include it in their curriculum. So you can imagine what the numbers are like for the lower grades. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics projects, and now these are old, the numbers have changed since they created this. So let's take a look at the newer ones. But the job growth projected through the year 2028 is now 21%. This is probably pretty too small for you to see, but 21%, which is much higher than the average. A typical entry-level education required is a bachelor's degree, and a starting salary is over $100,000. So it's not a bad field to go into. Problem-solving skills, remember, are transferable. So once you learn them, you can transfer them to humanities, math, any kind of science, economics, all kinds of fields require problem-solving skills. And there are those who think that computational thinking is part of the new literacy. So it's being looked at, it's being encouraged. Unfortunately, in the schools, it's hard to make room in the curriculum for yet another field of learning. So it has to more or less be integrated into the existing curriculum. And as you and I all know at this point, it's a lot easier to learn when you're young. So the younger you are, the earlier you learn, the easier it is. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions. Before we do that, though, I want to thank you for coming and wish you all a happy holiday season. And I am learning still how to market. So I do have some books up here that if you would like to purchase one, I would be happy to do that. I'll sign it for you if you would like. The price is $14.99, but right now on Amazon for Christmas, it's on sale for $13.20. So I'm going to sell them for $13 even here today. Okay? So do you have any questions that you would like for me to address? Yes?
Joanne, what's the age range for your book?
The age range for my book is written for 3rd through 6th grade. So the vocabulary, except for some of the terms that you really need to know to be a programmer, is written for those youngsters. But like I said, I have lunch every other month, believe it or not, with women that I went to high school with. And some of them have bought my book, and they're actually going through it and learning. So I think adults don't mind being talked down to as much as children do. So, but it's written for that middle school kind of age range. And that's why my grandson helped me out with what was being done. Any other questions? Yes.
Can people try out Color My Code on the web?
Absolutely. You can go to my website. I have some materials up here. You can go to, it's www.colormycode.com, and there's a tab there that says Try It, and you can actually go in and try it yourself. Okay? The problem with that is that you really need a little bit of learning before you can actually go in and do it correctly, or get that buzzer sound probably more than you would like. Okay, well, this is a labor of love for me. Somebody told me that this was my passion project, and I think that's true. I think I maybe neglected to tell you that I previously had written 19 textbooks, written 19 college-level textbooks, okay? But they were all published by a publisher. This one, I self-published. And so this is like a child to me. It's kind of like from the idea inception all the way through writing it, getting the cover design, getting the editing done, getting the illustrations, getting feedback all over the place, making changes constantly, until finally I think my husband said, you know, you can be editing this for the rest of your life. You can always find one more thing you want to make a little bit better. So this book is really special to me because it was a creation, like I said, from the very beginning all the way through publishing. I published it through Amazon, and so it is available for sale there. Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you all for your attention. Sorry for some of the technical snafus. Always happens.